people who like gullible sycophants who are willingly ignorant, and gentlemen. Folks, I've detected another kook by the name of Mr. Clay Dope, who seeks to blame all our fiscal problems on those dang Republicans. In all fairness, the GOP deserves some of the blame for spending like drunken sailors. However, Clay Dope is being rather disingenuous with the screed he pasted on the left side of his channel. It's generalized banter by a man who is either senile or just another lackey waiting at the shallow end of the gene pool. Let's dig into some details, shall we? Reading Clay Dope's tripe would lead one to believe that he wants spending reduced. If he'd like to balance the budget, I'm with him on that, although I guarantee we'd take different paths to that goal. Clay Dope wants to use the income tax as a bludgeon against successful people. As an aside, if he's upset about corporate welfare, I'm with the old goat on that too. See the video on your screen and the link below it where I corrected another moron on tax revenue as a percentage of GDP. No matter the tax rates, you aren't going to see significant increases of tax revenue as a percentage of GDP over extended periods of time. People will adjust to it as they always do. Hauser's Law tells us that tax revenue won't exceed 19% of GDP for an extended period of time. In addition, this clown is probably not aware of the Laffer curve. You could double the top income tax rate, you won't double revenue from that tax. Clay Dope also apparently needs a civics class and has a monarchist view of the executive branch, as if the executive can pull legislation out of his rear and dictate by fiat. The Constitution is very clear. All spending bills and bills raising revenue emanate in the House. Most legislation cannot, according to the Constitution, be passed by the Senate unless it has been first passed by the House. Otherwise, the Senate risks getting its legislation blue-slipped. So the House sets the table for all spending. In addition, according to the Constitution, a president cannot legally spend a dime without congressional approval. Sure, he can veto, but if 2/3 of Congress agrees, they can basically run the country. That doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen. In the end, all bills the president signs are authorized by Congress. He can't spend a dime without Congress's permission. This includes increasing the national debt ceiling. As an aside, one of Clay Dope's friends, the phony Dr. McStupid, also can't grasp this simple concept. Now that I've explained basic civics to this idiot, let's delve a bit further. Clay Dope fails to mention that Reagan had a Democrat House his entire presidency. The last 2 years of his presidency, Democrats controlled Congress entirely. In fact, from January 1955 until January 1981, Democrats controlled both chambers of Congress, which would include Nixon and Ford's presidencies. Clay Dope doesn't mention that. George Herbert Walker Bush had a Democrat Congress his entire presidency as well. When Reagan assumed office, fiscal year 1981 was already in motion. It began October 1st, 1980. With me so far, Clay Dope? Pay attention, son. His first full fiscal year, and this is my baseline, began on October 1st, 1981. Before 1976, the fiscal year began on July 1st. Congress passed legislation giving them more time to put a budget together. It now begins October 1st. Even then, every time there's a new president, Congress is doing the flight of the bumblebee, passing continuing resolutions and various stopgap measures to fund the rest of the fiscal year so they can begin procrastinating on next year's budget. When fiscal year 1981 ended, the national debt as a percentage of GDP was 32.5%. When fiscal year 1989 ended, it was 53.1%. That's roughly a 63.5 increase over that time frame. Bush's father saw it rise from 53.1% to 66.1% at the end of fiscal year 1993. That's an increase of 24.5%. That was under a Democrat Congress. Under Clinton, whose first 2 years had a Democrat Congress, and the final 6 years was under GOP control, it fell to 56.4%, a reduction of roughly 14.7% from fiscal year 1994 to the end of fiscal year 2001. That was September 30th, 2001. You still with me, big dummy? Okay. As an aside, Clinton did benefit from the tech boom, and as soon as that petered out, federal revenue started to decline. I will give Billy Boy Dew credit. He worked well with the GOP Congress to control spending, advocated free trade for the most part, and welfare reform was a success. It should have been done to every single federal means-tested welfare program. Using Clay Dope's logic, Eisenhower is one of the best presidents ever, and he's certainly much better than the last three, including the current one, on the spending side. The national debt as a percentage of GDP was 71.4% in fiscal year 1953. By fiscal year 1961, Eisenhower's last, that had declined to 55.2%, a reduction of 22.7%. Eisenhower had a Democrat Congress for 3/4 of his presidency. They get the lion's share of the credit for that. That even occurred in the face of declining revenue measured against inflation. They did it then, we can do it now. I should also mention Ike wasn't saddled with an inefficient and bankrupt Medicare program, and Social Security was still relatively young back then. That must be factored in too. It wasn't going off a cliff as it is now. Nor were means-tested welfare programs proliferating back then. I'll touch on that in a moment. I need to mention this too, just because the national debt as a percentage of GDP is going down, that doesn't necessarily mean everything is hunky-dory. The fact that the national debt in nominal dollars hasn't decreased in any fiscal year since Eisenhower tells me that our government can't cut spending in the good times. During the good times, we make all these promises and all these pledges and obligations to take care of this and that, assuming that things will continue as they did during most of the 1980s and 1990s. There will be lean economic times. We should practice austerity. In those times, when a recession comes along, we'll be able to deal with it better. From fiscal years 2008 through 2011, when Democrats controlled Congress, the national debt as a percentage of GDP went from 69.4% and is now hovering around 100% of GDP. I think Clay Dope's mentioning that Obama got handed a deficit to excuse Obama spending. So you're going to cure runaway spending with more spending. Okay. Hello, Greece. Despite campaigning on a net spending cut, Hussein Obama has done nothing but spend. Pelosi's pledge back in 2006 to eliminate deficit spending if the Democrats took over Congress was a ruse. The national debt is now over $15 trillion. Also, see the two videos on your screen where I go over Obama and Pelosi's broken promises as well as historical federal spending in detail. I even covered defense spending in the latter video. Been there, done that. I'll stress again, Congress has the authority to deny the president an increase in the national debt. They can rein in the president, yet Congress on a multitude of occasions, whether the economy is good or bad, increases the national debt. Even under Bill Clinton and his vaunted, stingy Newt Gingrich-led GOP Congress, the national debt was increased several times and by significant amounts overall. In the 8 years prior to Reagan becoming president, the debt ceiling had more than doubled. It increased by 75% from the last 2 years of Reagan until the GOP took over Congress in January 1995. Congress was in Democrat hands at the time, during that time frame. Now let's go to Social Security and means-tested welfare spending. These obligations make it much harder for the Congress and President to balance the budget. Not that I think they're really interested in doing that. They're more interested in buying votes with someone else's money. With the enactment of Social Security under FDR and the rise of the welfare state under LBJ, we've finally dug ourselves a hole. From fiscal year 1971 through 1980, Social Security and means-tested welfare spending was more than 77% greater than the rate of inflation. From fiscal years 1981 through 1990, that increase registered at over 35%. Even under Clinton, fiscal years 1994 through 2001, spending alone on Social Security and means-tested welfare were almost 21% beyond the rate of inflation. That was during a good economy that cannot be sustained for a myriad of reasons. I hope everyone sees how this is making it harder for us to get our budget problems under control. We will reform the programs voluntarily, or there will be a crash and you'll get thrown under the bus. The laws of economics won't change just because someone claims to have good intentions and recites empty emotional appeals tugging at your heartstrings. Interest payments on the debt are another item Clay Dope leaves out. Bush and Clinton both lucked out with lower interest rates. Under Reagan, that was not the case, as interest payments on our debt were very high. If we continue to pile on debt and continue to borrow, we will have this scenario again. Add in entitlements, and we are careening towards a brick wall. If Bush had to deal with the inflation bomb Reagan had to deal with, he would have piled on even more debt. Although I'd argue that the government itself, and specifically the Federal Reserve, exacerbate the problem of inflation. They are the root cause. Keeping interest rates artificially low for insanely long periods of time won't work and isn't working, but that's for another day. Now to my last piece of business. Milton Friedman popularized the notion that the government will always spend what it takes in and more, no matter what. No amount of money will satisfy them. No tax hike will assuage their hunger to spend other people's money to take care of you. Case in point, Clinton's best 3 fiscal years for federal tax revenue were, adjusting for inflation, were 55% higher than the best 3 years for federal revenue during Reagan's presidency. I realize the population was a lot larger and there are demographic differences such as proportion of the population that's out of the workforce, etc., but bear with me. Even with all that revenue, the national debt still increased in nominal dollars every year. Bush's 3 best fiscal years for federal revenue were 5.5% higher, adjusting for inflation than Clinton's 3 best. The national debt continued skyward. Adjusting for inflation, Bush 41 brought in almost $6 trillion in federal tax revenue from fiscal years 1990 through 1993, yet the national debt ceiling was raised several times by a Democrat Congress to the tune of about $1 trillion, and the debt continued to go up. Washington needs to be reined in. It needs to be deprived of a lot of money, much of which is thrown straight down a hole and or is completely unconstitutional. Heed this warning or you'll be sorry later. You better find a candidate who's going to take a hard line against Congress and find some people in Congress who are willing to actually cut spending and not just talk about it like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. A linguini-spined Mr. Milky Toast who will acquiesce to Congress's demands for more spending will not get the job done. Find someone who will reform entitlements and the welfare state. Find someone who will rein in defense spending and quit piling on this debt. Interest payments on our debt will rise. Mark my words. That's going to be a major problem too. So, Mr. Clay Dope, I look forward to your video response to this. It should be interesting. I think I've poked enough holes in your stupidity that it should keep that tiny brain of yours busy for a long time. And again, all the links are underneath the video as per usual. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now.